All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about some of the recent trades, extensions, as well as some injury news as well. So CBS's Instagram, they did post a quote from Jerry Jones about the possibility of stepping down as the Cowboys GM, and this is what he said. There's nobody that could bleeping come in here and do all the contracts and be a better GM any better than I can. So it's probably not something Cowboys fans want to hear. I'm assuming that'll send a certain group of Cowboys fans in an uproar because, some of them do point to Jerry Jones as, being the problem. And that's something that, like I said, a certain group of Cowboy fans probably don't want to hear, that he's probably not interested in stepping down anytime soon. So, let's get into the trades and other news, extensions and all that. So, this is what I was going to cover on Friday, but obviously we didn't have a show. So, then that's a graphic from the preseason matchups from Thursday. I actually didn't bring up Anthony Richardson's performance. I wanted to get into that, but again, spent so much time on college football. But we'll touch upon it over the course of the next few segments here. But one of the trades was the Eagles acquiring Jahan Dotson from the Commanders. So the Commanders traded him and a 2025 fifth-round pick, to the Eagles. And in return, the Commanders received a 2025 third-round pick and two 2025 seventh-round picks. Jahan Dotson was a former number one draft choice by the Commanders. Not overall, but, you guys know what I mean. In both 2020, over the course of the 2 years that he was with the Commanders, over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. And, dealt with the quarterback carousel in Washington. You had Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke last year with Sam Howell. But then, you got Jaden Daniels, who, again, one of the rookie quarterbacks that has played well in the preseason. It looked like he was going to be a major factor in that offense, but that was not the case. He ended up getting traded to the Eagles, and, that sent people, a certain group of people in an uproar, because it's like, why are you trading him within the division? Now, these are his stats from last year. But, now he goes to a Philly offense, which is just loaded from top to bottom. The offensive line, the two receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now he steps in as that third guy, because that's kind of what they were looking for. Because they had Devontae Parker, and he retired. They also brought in John Ross as well. But, Jahan Dotson stepping in as a number 3 wide receiver, that's not bad. You also got Dallas Goedert, and, of course, Saquon Barkley is in the fold. And we got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. And we're going to see, this offense on full display next Friday when they take on the Packers. That is going to be, next weekend, you got the AFC Championship game rematch, and then you got the Eagles and the Packers the next day, college football, and then NFL Sunday plus Jets 49ers on Monday. It's going to be a great weekend of football. It really is. But I think this was a good move for the Eagles. Again, he's your number 3 receiver. But it does make you wonder why the Commanders would trade within the division, but that's what they decided to do. And Jahan Dotson is now a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll get into some other news as well. So Creed Humphrey of the Chiefs, he signed a 4-year extension worth $72 million, $50 million guaranteed. He becomes the highest paid center in NFL history. He's 25 years old. He was a second-round pick in the 2021 draft, and he was a part of that revamping of the offensive line for the Chiefs because, the year before in the Super Bowl, Mahomes was running for his life, and, they went out and they got Creed Humphrey. I think they also drafted another lineman that year as well. But they signed 2 new tackles. Oh yeah, they also brought in Joe Tooney that season. They really did a great job revamping the offensive line. And what ended up happening? Now they made it back to the AFC Championship game, lost to the Bengals, but what's happened? 2 straight Super Bowls for the Chiefs. And there are some concerns with the Chiefs' offensive line going into the season. I know that, from some of the the programs that I've been watching, there's some questions about that offensive line. So we'll see. I mean, going against the Ravens and their defense and how good that was last year, we'll get a close look at that. But that's a good move by the Chiefs. Keeping one of their key pieces on the offensive line. Also, the Falcons, they continue to be busy. They gave one of their top corner, AJ Terrell, an extension of 4-year, $81 million extension. $65.8 million is the largest guarantee ever given to a cornerback on a 4-year deal. And he's making $20.25 million, making him the second highest paid corner in the NFL behind only Jair Alexander. So, they've been busy with, obviously paying Kirk Cousins this offseason. They also, recently traded for Matthew Judon and signed Justin Simmons. So, the Falcons, they're hoping for a good season. And I think they're going to have one. If Kirk Cousins plays well, I don't think there's any reason to believe otherwise. But that's just me. 25 years old. He was the 16th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft by the Falcons. Second team All-Pro in 2021. And he's regarded as one of the top corners in the NFL. But yeah, this is a good move for them. And yeah, like I said, the Falcons have been busy. Now, I also wanted to get into, some other moves that around the league. And one of them was, an injury update. So, Nick Chubb will miss the first 4 games of the season, which I think most people expected. He was put on the PUP. Well, he's been on the PUP list, but was not activated, so he's going to miss the first 4 games. So I know we did talk about the Browns-Cowboys game a little bit in the last segment. So that's at least one player they're not going to have to deal with, is Nick Chubb. But, look, it's the right move. I mean, if Nick Chubb is not all the way back, then obviously, you want to take your time with him. And, I think I was reading that, he still had some ways to go before, being activated. So, but yeah, he's going to miss the first 4 games. And Browns, they got the Cowboys on the schedule. Week 1, they got the Saints. Nope, not the Cowboys. One of the Browns schedule. Browns got the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Raiders. I mean, I think the Browns could go 3-1 in those games, and then Chubb comes back. Browns actually have a doable schedule, although it does get tough towards the end of the year. But early on, I think they could definitely stack up some wins. First 5 games of the season, but yeah, I think they'll be able to get by. I mean, listen, look at what they did last year. You had 5 different starting quarterbacks. I mean, you had a ton of injuries, and they were, despite all that, they still won 11 games. So, but then also some other news: a familiar face returns to Kansas City. That's Juju Smith-Schuster. The Chiefs bring him back. Assuming it's just a 1-year deal. And he played an important role on the Chiefs back in 2022. He played well for them. Now, obviously, the Chiefs, they revamped the receiving core, and, Marquise Brown is out, so I think that also played a role. But I'm happy for him because New England just did not seem like it was the place for him. Last year, 260 receiving yards and a touchdown. In the previous season, in Kansas City, he had 933 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year he played in 11 games. The year before that he played in 16. So, and he knows the offense. I'm happy for him that he's going back there because, like I said, he had a good year with them. And it's a cheap deal. I mean, obviously, again, he's not going to be looked at as one of the top weapons because a couple of years ago he was, the top, at least the top wide receiver in that offense. But now, like I said, you got Marquise Brown who's going to come back at some point. You have Rashee Rice, you have Xavier Worthy. So, there's some competition in that receiving room. And we'll see how they fill out the rest of the receiving core. I mean, Justin Watson, I'm assuming will be there. But yeah, that's a I think a good move for the Chiefs and a good move for Juju as well. Even if he doesn't have like as much of a role in the offense as he did a couple of years ago. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think though about the extensions, about the injury news, and signings. In the comments. So we're gonna take our next break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the Hard Knocks episode from last week. I'll just give you some of my thoughts, on Caleb Williams' performance in the preseason game against the Bengals, as well as some other things as well when we come back. So, and only, 2 more episodes. You got the one this Tuesday, tomorrow, and then next week. And then we move into the AFC North, which, that's gonna be fun. Seeing the in-season Hard Knocks, it's gonna be fun to watch, and I'm gonna make sure, to continue recapping the episodes. But yeah, so that is what we will do when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.